Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. This is our very last webinar of the semester, and it is finals week. So thanks for, carving out the time to be here today. We really appreciate it. Today we're talking after graduation. So really talking through all the important things soon-to-be graduates should know about managing their future finances in life after graduating college. Before we kick it off here, we've got to do some introductions. My name is Allie Smith. I'm Assistant Director of Financial Counseling here at Penn State's Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center. And I'm so excited to be joined by Aidan Kamowski. He's our Senior Financial Literacy Ambassador at the center. He is a certified financial peer mentor, and he's really done such great work with us in the last 3 years. He's helped us create slide decks that we use for our group presentations. He's met with a ton of students through our one-on-one financial coaching program. And generally, he's just really helped to build out our center and our programming in the last few years. So I'll let Aidan introduce himself. You'll also hear more from him later on in today's presentation.
Well, thank you, Allie. You very much sort of helped introduce me. But yes, my name is Aidan Kamowski. I am a student ambassador for the Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center. And as Allie said, thank you very much. I've done a lot over my 3 years working at the center, but now, finally it's time to graduate, and I'm super excited to be here co-presenting today after graduation, a topic very much so on my mind as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And we are sad to be losing you, Aidan, but I'm excited that you're able to kind of just chime in here on your last day of work and share this important information with your fellow soon-to-be graduates. So helping to moderate the chat today, we have Pete. He's another one of our wonderful financial literacy ambassadors. He'll be, moderating the chat, posting some helpful links and resources in there throughout today's webinar. So you might want to keep the chat open so you don't miss any of those like additional helpful tidbits of information coming through there. As you have questions, you can put them in the chat if you want, but you can also use the Q&A. The Q&A does allow you to ask questions anonymously if you'd like to take advantage of that feature. If you're attending from SMEAL's Ethical Leadership Challenge, we do have a QR code for you for today's webinar, and we'll share that at the end of the webinar today. Otherwise, this webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be posted on our YouTube page by the end of the week. So you'll be able to, go there and rewatch this if you'd like to later on. Okay, I think those are our housekeeping items. So let's continue on here. First of all, before we dive in, we want to hear from you. We'd like to take a minute to just kind of get to know who's in our audience. And if you're graduating, what are your plans after graduation? So I'm going to share out a poll here. It's a quick poll today. We just have 2 questions. First of all, what is your affiliation with Penn State? We want to know who you are. And also, if you are a student who is graduating, what will life look like for you after graduation? The second question is multiple choice. So if you're doing multiple things after graduation, maybe you're moving and starting a full-time job, you can click both of those things. And if there's something that we don't have in here, it looks like we have a few people who have indicated other, something that's not on this list. If you're comfortable, you can let us know in the chat what you're going to be up to. If not, that's okay too. Okay, it looks like we've got undergraduate and graduate students, some Penn State parents, welcome, and also a community member. Great. We are glad to have everyone here. Looks like a lot of folks are starting a full-time job, moving, attending graduate school. Okay. Looks like we've got some exciting plans here, which is great. So let's dive on in. What are the things that we need to be thinking about to manage our finances and really grow in our own financial wellness after graduation? First things first, we need to tie up any loose ends we've got here at Penn State, right? For anyone graduating this weekend, this may be happening very quickly. So hopefully you've done most of these things already. But first, checking all requirements for graduation. So being sure to check off all university, college, and major requirements. And it is really your job as a student to notify the university of your intent to graduate. You'll also need to update your forwarding information, so your address and other contact information, and you can do this in LionPath. One of our staff members yesterday reminded us that it's called a commencement ceremony and not a graduation ceremony because you don't actually receive your diploma when you walk across the stage. Your diploma will be mailed to you later. And this is a very important piece of mail, right? So you want to be sure to go into LionPath, make sure your mailing address is correct and that it's updated. There will be people, I'm sure, who forget this important step. I know a few years ago when I moved to my apartment here in State College in 2019, one of the first things that happened when I moved into that apartment is that I received the previous tenant's diploma in the mail. He was a graduate student and had just graduated, and I got his diploma, so I had to find a way to track him down and make sure that he got that. But don't let that be you, right? Make sure that you update your mailing address. Before graduating is also a great time to get letters of recommendation. Maybe you ask professors that you have had good relationships with through your time here at Penn State, or if you worked on campus, you could ask your supervisors for those letters of recommendation also. It's really a good idea to ask now, right? When you and all of your accomplishments that you've had in your time here at Penn State are kind of fresh in these people's minds. Before you graduate, one more thing to think about here, you'll also need to update your information with your lenders. So make sure all addresses in your lender systems are correct. For your federal student loans, you can make these updates in your account at studentaid.gov. And if you have private loans, you'll need to log into your accounts to update that information as well. They might just mail you important information, and you really want to make sure that those pieces of mail aren't sent to your dorm room or your apartment here in State College or on campus, right? You might not be in State College. Additionally, one more thing to just kind of mention here as we're talking about tying up loose ends is that you will eventually lose access to things like your student email and your Office 365 apps. So you might want to take some time to download any important files from your Outlook suite before you lose that access. Also, if your Penn State email acts as your login for any websites, you might want to log into those websites and change that. Okay, so we've kind of organized this presentation into 5 concrete steps or like items to be thinking about when it comes to your finances after graduation. The first step here is refreshing your budget. So in this journey from student life to like adult life, you'll be making a lot of big decisions, and it's important that you're making these decisions with the larger context of your overall financial picture in mind. This is really where your budget comes in. Your budget is a tool that can help you plan and prioritize how you save, spend, and invest your money. Ideally, it really helps you prioritize your spending today while also allowing you to stash some money away for your future self and your future goals. It's really important that you're intentional about this budgeting process and you're not just kind of doing whatever you want with your money or like doing whatever everyone else seems to be doing with their money. My hope for everyone is that you can manage your money in a way that lets you not only take care of your financial obligations, so, do things like pay your bills, save and invest, pay back your student loans, all that good stuff, but also really live a joyful life. Life after graduating college is about so much more than work. So managing your money properly is a huge part of being able to pursue those things in life that bring you joy outside of work and your job. If you've never had a budget before, this is a great time to start this habit. It's really the start of this like new era in your life, right? So how do we begin to budget? Well, it's actually pretty simple. And first, before we dive into like the steps to budgeting, let me just say that I think we tend to think of a budget as being something that restricts us from spending our money. But a budget is really just a plan that helps you keep your finances under control and helps you achieve your financial goals. If your financial goal is to travel, that's great. You definitely want to have a line item in your budget for travel. Your budget is a tool that will allow you to spend, save, and invest your money how you want to spend, save, and invest your money. So, what are these steps? First, set a financial goal. Starting with a goal can be a really good motivator to actually complete and follow your budget. And you'll want to build that financial goal into your budget. So maybe your financial goal is to save for a trip, to pay off your credit card balance, or pay off your student loans, or maybe create an emergency fund. Next, you'll find a tool that you like. There are a ton of different budgeting apps and tools out there to help you with this process. Finding the right one for you might take some trial and error, but we do have a great budget template on our website that you can download and use for free, and it can kind of help you with this process. Pete just put a link in the chat to where you can find that budget template. And also another thing to mention is that you can get a budgeting app. It's called You Need a Budget, YNAB for short. It is a paid app, but you can get it for free for a year with your Penn State email. So if you're someone who's graduating and you want to take advantage of that offer while you still can, you might want to do that. Okay, you'll find a tool and then you'll identify your income and your expenses and you'll subtract your expenses from your income. So what are the things that you need to plan for and pay for, and how does your income kind of stack up against those expenses? And then the final step here, adjusting your spending as needed, is really the most important step. If you've just kind of created this plan and you're not adjusting your spending to fit the plan, your budget is really kind of ineffective. It's not helping you as much as it could be. So we need to make sure we're looking at our budgets regularly and using the information we gather to actually change our habits and adjust our spending. I'd also just like to say that our budget should really serve two purposes. So first, your budget should be a plan for how you want to spend, save, and invest your money, right? So looking at your income and really planning these things out. Like this is steps 3 and 4 on our flow chart here. And then the second purpose that your budget should serve is that it should also be some sort of tool that will allow you to keep track of your spending to align your actual spending with the plan that you've set up for yourself. Oftentimes, I'll talk with people and they're missing like one or the other important aspects of a budget. So they'll have a plan, but no system to keep track of their spending. And they'll wonder why they're like struggling to stay on track with their budget. Or, they're only tracking their spending and they don't have this bigger picture of their goals and how things fit together within their income. So for your budget to really best serve you, you need to find a way to incorporate those two things, right? You need to have a plan and also some sort of tracking tool to help you stay on track with your plan. It's also important that when you're creating your budget plan, you're using your net income and not your gross income. So your gross income would be your actual salary offer, right? And your net income is what lands in your bank account after taxes and other deductions like retirement contributions and healthcare expenses have been taken out of your paycheck. So we like to say gross is the most and net is what you get, to kind of help you remember the difference there. In the chat, I would love to see if you have any idea What do you think we should estimate will be taken out of our gross paychecks for taxes and deductions in terms of a percentage? Give you a second to think about it. Do we have any guesses? 20%? It's a good guess. Okay, so we say you should estimate between 25 to 35% of your gross salary will go towards those taxes and deductions. So maybe a little higher than 20% after graduation, right? And remember, this not only goes to tax, but also includes things like a retirement contribution, healthcare, and maybe even things like parking too. All things that come off the top of your paycheck. But I mean, this is kind of a lot, right? This could potentially be a big number. And so if you took your salary offer, your gross salary offer, and just divided it by 12 and started doing your planning with that income, um, you'd probably find yourself in a bad way financially pretty quickly. Like, imagine if you planned things like where to live and what to drive based on your gross salary, and you actually ended up with about 30% less than that landing in your bank account each month. So, estimating your net salary is an important first step in setting up your after graduation budget plan. Pete put a great link in the chat that can help you estimate your tax percentage based on your area and your income from Smart Asset. And this is specifically just for taxes, so it can help you get a better idea of what amount in taxes will need to be withheld from your paycheck. But it won't include those other deductions. So if you'll also have like a 5% 401k contribution coming out of your paycheck, for example, you'll need to include that in your estimate as well. Okay, so when you're fitting this all together and you're really building out your budget like a puzzle, you'll also need to prioritize your spending. So, really thinking through what are your needs and what are your wants. We ideally want to find ourselves in a place where we can afford all of our needs and some of our wants. When I talk with people who are struggling with their finances, sometimes they have kind of lost sight of needs versus wants. They're overspending on their wants, which is making it a struggle to afford their needs. And the reality is, we will probably never be able to afford every single thing that we want. There are just so many things to want. And because of social media and how connected we are and how kind of in your face advertising is in today's day and age, we want a lot of things, right? That's just how it works. But we need to be able to kind of filter through those things and prioritize. What are the things that we want the most? And how can we organize our finances in a way that allows us to prioritize those things that we want the most and bring us the most joy over those maybe less meaningful things that maybe we just want because someone else has it? This conversation around needs and wants sounds so simple. I think it's almost like juvenile, but I think it's really easy to lose sight of this if you're not cognizant of your finances and your spending habits. Again, like there are so many things to want in today's world, and sometimes those wants can present as needs. So I just want to do like a quick exercise with you all. I encourage you to think of the last thing that you spent money on, whether that was today or yesterday or last week. Like just think of the last thing that you spent money on, and then kind of think through, was that a need or was that a want? And if you're comfortable sharing, you can totally share in the chat. I would love to see what you guys are thinking here. I'll go first though. So the last thing I spent money on was a coffee from Dunkin' this morning. and that was a want, right? Okay, food out to eat, that was a want. I think food is really interesting because it's one of those things that can be tricky because we all need to eat, right? We do need to eat, but we don't need to eat out, right? And so food maybe out is a want. Groceries from Aldi was a want. Okay, that's interesting. Car payment could be a want and a need. That's a really good point. All right, Sarah's correcting herself. It was a need. Okay, that's kind of what I thought. So I think that's um a great example. Like Aidan said, I got food out and that was a want. Sarah says, I got groceries and that was a need, right? Okay. I think this is a good exercise to incorporate into your financial life, like whenever you can. And like I said, it almost might feel a little juvenile, but I mean, I work with a lot of people in our one-on-one coaching program, and I think this is something that we should think about more. What are our needs and what are our wants? Okay. And, to cap off this portion of the conversation with budgeting, just to really reiterate, like the goal should be to manage our finances in such a way that allows us to take care of those financial obligations that we have, but also enjoy life, right? Like striking this balance between needs and wants and being able to decipher the difference between the two of those is an important piece of that. Okay, so moving on to our second step, and that is to be sure to negotiate your salary. I love that we're kind of chatting in the chat. So if you could, if you're comfortable sharing, let me know what's one word that comes to mind for you when you think of negotiating your salary, if anything. I think we got two at the same time. Intimidating. It's feeling intimidating. Yes. Scary. So I think that this negotiating your salary piece of this can feel intimidating and scary, and that's really because it's a skill that you haven't sharpened yet. If you think of like downhill skiing, for example, and you've never done that before and you've never practiced and you're just going down this crazy hill on your skis, that is going to feel very scary, right? Because it's not something that you've done in the past. Same thing with salary negotiation. The more that you can practice this skill and the more comfortable that you can get with this, the less scary and intimidating that it's going to feel, hopefully. And you might wonder if this is a conversation worth having at all. We know it can feel a little bit uncomfortable to have these conversations about salary, especially if it's your first time negotiating your salary. So you might just be tempted to skip it altogether, or maybe you feel like they're just going to say no anyway. So why even bother? Let me just start by saying negotiating salary is expected in most positions. Like your employers are really expecting you to have this conversation. And there are many other reasons to negotiate your salary. The most obvious being that if you're hoping to, earn more wages or more than you are originally offered, negotiating your salary is the way to accomplish that. But there are some other like larger reasons why salary negotiation is important. First, the where you start with your salary is the biggest indicator of where you're going to end up with your salary in your career. Your first wage can absolutely affect where you land with your salary in the next 20 to 40 years. This graph is showing some of the research surrounding where you might start your first job and the difference in lifetime earning potential that would kind of bring you. Notice that someone who starts at 56,000 instead of 40,000 will make about 1.2 million more dollars over the course of their career. That is a big number. So there's really this moment of leverage when you first begin your employment history. The other reason why salary negotiation is critical is to close the gender pay gap and the equity pay gap, or the pay equity gap, rather. If you're not familiar with these, women earn about 82 cents on average for every dollar that a man makes. This pay equity gap gets even larger for women of color. So Black women earn 70 cents for every dollar a man makes on average, and Hispanic women earn 65 cents for every dollar a man makes on average. And again, these are significant figures, right? Especially when we talk about lifetime earnings. So to close this pay gap, we really need to empower women to negotiate and also support policies that promote, pay equity and pay transparency. Today's webinar really is about the empowerment piece. So making sure that you, whether you're a woman or not, have the skills that you need and are prepared to negotiate effectively. But policy is a completely different side of this, but it is equally as important. So really, we want to negotiate our salaries, even if it feels scary, I would say for 3 reasons, right? First, we want to be paid what we're worth. We also want to work to close this pay gap that exists. And we know that our starting salary will absolutely affect our earnings over our lifetime. So what are these skills? What are the things that we need to do to effectively negotiate? There are a few kind of essential skills that you'll need to have and things that you'll need to do to prepare. So starting with doing market research to see what other folks in similar roles doing similar work in similar locations are being paid. There are a ton of good resources for doing this research in the chat. There are about 5 different ones here. So don't let this sea of links confuse you. There are 5 different resources here. Some of my favorites are salary.com, which is the first link. I really appreciate that salary.com allows you to plug in things like your level of experience and your level of education and your location. Those are all important things to be considering when you're doing this research. Also, the second link is Penn State's We Earn tool, and I think this is a really cool tool to explore. It shows what alumni in each major from each college are making. It shows median data, so you'll really be able to see median data, but it shows what alumni are making 5 and 10 years after graduation, which I think is great. So we want to do this research and we want to be comfortable and confident with the things that we're finding, because eventually we're going to need to kind of regurgitate that research with a conversation with our future potential employer. From there, it's a good idea to prioritize negotiating points. Is there anything else that's important to you besides salary? Maybe a flexible schedule or paid time off. These are things that you can also negotiate alongside your salary. Or maybe you find that your employer is someone who doesn't negotiate salary. There might be other things here that you can negotiate. So just because they say maybe we're not open to negotiating salary, you don't have to stop there. There could be other things that you're looking for here. Then knowing yourself and really practicing expressing your value. So when it comes to knowing yourself, it's a great idea to create some sort of portfolio of important projects that you've done, important work that you've done. If you're someone who's graduating and is looking for a job or is in the process of having these conversations with employers, this is a great time to start building this portfolio. You can continue to contribute to this portfolio as you move from employer to employer and continue negotiating your salary and building on your skill set. So even just having something like a Word document or a OneNote notebook where you kind of store these things that you've done that are relevant to the job that you are applying for is going to be really helpful, because as time goes on and you get more years behind you and more years of experience under your belt in your career, it's going to be easy to start to forget those things. You also want to practice. So you'll kind of collect the things that make you valuable as an employee, right? And you also want to practice expressing those things. So practice having this conversation. You can kind of role play with friends and family if that's what works for you to practice. You can talk to yourself in the mirror, whatever works for you to really get comfortable. think of anything else important that you do in your life. I guess I want to say other important conversations that you might have. So maybe it is a presentation for a final project, or maybe it is a conversation that you've been dreading with a significant other or like your boss. You might practice having those conversations, right? And this salary negotiation conversation is no different. It's not going to get easier and you're not going to feel less scared unless you practice, just like you'd want to practice for your final presentation, right? And then finally, you want to secure the offer. So you want to make sure that you've kind of officially gotten this offer before you are starting this negotiation conversation. I've gotten questions in the past where people had kind of asked, what if I'm in the first interview and they're asking me what my salary expectations are? What you can kind of do in that moment is just deflect a little bit. You can say, I'm really interested in this position, but I would like to learn a little bit more about the role before I commit to the salary that I want to have, or the salary that I'm looking for, something like that. The idea here is that you can and should deflect having the salary conversation until after you've actually secured that offer. Okay, so that was our second step here. I'm going to hand it off to Aidan to talk to us about step 3, which is saving and investing.
Perfect. Thank you, Allie. So, saving and investing is a really amazing opportunity that everyone has available for them to be able to help grow and build their wealth. And it may seem complicated, but it's actually very simple by just doing two things, trying to invest early and often. And I hope this quick example here can help demonstrate that. So, everyone can read, but I'll just read it aloud. Who will have the largest investment return by age 65? First, we have Talia. She invests $5,000 annually between 35 and 65. So starting a little bit later in life, but continues for 30 years. She's very consistent. In total, she invests 150,000. Second, we have Jess, who does the same amount a year of $5,000 annually between 25 and 35. So she starts young, but she's not too consistent, only doing it for 10 years, investing a total of $50,000. Fourth, we have Nate, who invests the same $5,000 a year, but starting young and consistent through investing 25 through 65 for 40 total years, and invests a total of $200,000. So now can I have just some, everyone just to type in the chat of who do you think will have the largest investment return by 65? Talia, Jess, or Nate? Just give that a quick second. All right, well, yes, so congratulations. Yes, the answer is Nate. That should be, somewhat easy to deduce because he did. Here, I'm just trying to get the. Okay, well, I'm not sure why the slide wasn't working, but this should be easy because he did invest the most of $200,000, and you can see here his 200,000 turns into 1.1 million, which is amazing. But what may surprise you is the difference between Talia and Jess. Who comes in second place is Jess, who only invested $50,000. But because she started young, she actually comes out ahead of Talia, who does 3 times the amount, but starts so much later in life, she is unable to catch up. And I really just hope this example can hit home the point of one, just investing, even if it's just a little bit of money, you don't have to do $5,000 annually, but whatever amount works for you, even if that's just $10 or $20 a month, start young now, or whatever age you're at, start now and build up over time, because the sooner you start, regardless of the amount of money you put in, it's really about giving your money time to grow. Ideally, you can put money in as well, like Nate, but just starting young is really going to be the best option there. Then on to 4. So when it comes to investing, ideally the first goal we should all start investing for is retirement. That's probably a goal that everyone has. I don't know about you guys, but I have not started my career yet. I'm about to graduate, but I know that retirement is a goal I'll have one day, so it's good to start preparing for it now. And when it comes to retirement, there's two big ways to invest for retirement. First, on the left, we have the individual retirement account. This is an amazing way to help prepare by saving and investing all by yourself for your retirement. With the IRA, or the individual retirement account, there's two different types of them called Roth and traditional. With Roth, you contribute after-tax dollars, which is all just money you have in your bank account. You have already paid taxes and deductions on it. And when you invest that into the Roth option, all of the gains you have eventually when you go to retire are all tax-free, which is an amazing benefit. Additionally, there's also the traditional IRA, which you contribute pre-tax dollars to. Usually that's something like deducted out of your paycheck, like health insurance or parking or 401k. We'll cover that soon, but it's just deducted and then invested. And then whenever you go to retire and then withdraw the money, it is that tax at that point. So regardless of whichever account you pick, they're both really amazing options. And if you want to get more tailored advice specific to you and your scenario, I strongly encourage checking out some of the center's other resources that we'll highlight later in the presentation. Also, a unique perk specifically to the Roth IRA is that funds can be withdrawn up to $10,000 for first-time home buying. So I know buying a home now is incredibly difficult and very hard to do, but even if you're saving for retirement, this one unique exception can allow you to also divest a little bit of that money from retirement to that first-time home. So that may be something you could be interested in. But even if you don't want to invest for retirement, individually, a really popular way as well is through your employer, through something like an employer-sponsored plan. The most popular type is the 401k, which you may have heard of, but there's also other types based on what type of workplace you have, whether that's public school, government, federal government, if you have a pension for certain companies or the government or whatever. But regardless of whatever type you have, I strongly encourage you as well to look into your employer-sponsored plan as well, as they have the added and unique benefit of being able to sometimes offer a match program where, for example, if you put in $1,000, your employer will also put in $1,000 as well for you. And that can be a really amazing way to help kickstart and really fuel saving for retirement, even with not that much money. If you scan that QR code there, it can show you an example of how much you need for your retirement, and you may be surprised by the amount. So I encourage you to utilize some of these amazing resources to be able to help you prepare for that, even if it's just starting now young. Now, fourth, on to considering educational expenses. So education is expensive, and it's surely a worthwhile endeavor as college graduates on average earn $1 million more over the course of their career than non-college graduates. But being able to pay for education in a smart way and pay for those expenses is something important to consider. First, for those of you who have student loans, which you would have gotten through something like filling out the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. If you have those, strongly encourage you to check out those loans, confirm everything is good there, you know how much you have. If you want to check that, the only website for federal student loans is studentaid.gov, only official place for that. And if you want to get an estimate of how much those loans may cost you after graduation in terms of a monthly payment, I strongly encourage checking out the loan simulator tool, again, available on studentaid.gov. It's an amazing way to help sort of get your budget in order, understand some of those monthly payments and different ways you can utilize to pay those loans off. Also, eventually, when it comes down to it, make sure you make an account with your loan servicer, who is how you will actually pay your loans back. They should reach out to you, but if they don't, just make sure that you understand who you're paying those back to. Again, all this information available through studentaid.gov. And then also, fun fact, if you didn't know, after graduation, you actually get a 6-month grace period to not have to pay your loans if you don't want to. So if you graduate in May, like everyone here at Penn State is, you have up to 6 months to defer payments and just wait and then start repaying after the 6-month period. But just so you know, that is a one-time 6-month period. You can't get another one just 6 months once, and we'll cover that a little bit more later. Additionally, if you have loans that are not federal but private student loans, encourage you very strongly to log into your private loan servicer and find the repayment terms that you've selected, see what that monthly payment is. Again, go back to the budget, start working that into this, and just sort of make sure you consider education expenses and build those into the monthly budget that you have. Again, for the people here in the audience thinking about grad school, again, education is surely a worthwhile expense, but paying for that is sometimes difficult, and hopefully these couple options we have here can make that a little bit easier. So first, strongly encourage you looking into fellowship options. Those are very popular for grad schools, and I know they can be a really good way to help cover tuition, living expenses. They can be competitive, but oftentimes they can also be very rewarding. For example, I have multiple friends who are going to grad school, and the fellowships that you can get, you do have to earn, but oftentimes it can be for thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in funding available. So it can be a very lucrative way to help pay for that. So strongly encourage to look into that. Again, assistantships, again, very similar to fellowships, just ways to learn sort of help teaching, doing work, can be a really good way to help sort of fund that education as well. For those of you who are considering going full-time first and considering grad school at a later date, employer tuition reimbursement programs are a very popular way for employees to go to school part-time or remote or in some way to be able to both work their job and go to school, and your employer will actually repay you the money that you put into that program. So that can be a very popular way as well. Strongly recommend asking your employer whenever you start if that's something they offer, and you can go to grad school as well. And then finally, just scholarships and grants based on whether that's merit or need or any other criteria. Once again, an amazing option to help work and pay for school. So regardless of whatever it is, if grad school is a goal that you have, there are tons of available means for you to be able to fund and pay for that in a responsible way. Although grad school is very expensive, and when it comes to that, sometimes loans are something to consider as well. When it comes to that, first, with the graduate unsubsidized loans, you must complete the FAFSA, just like you did in undergrad. There's not a credit check, and thankfully, though, there is a much, much higher annual limit for how many loans you can borrow. With that, it goes from around 7,500 for undergrad all the way up to 20,500 per year you can borrow from the government. I do want to highlight, though, that there is an aggregate or total limit available to these loans, that you can have no more than 138,500 in loans total. So for example, if you already had $20,000 in loans from undergrad, you can only borrow an additional 118,500 in loans. Whatever the amount is total cannot add up to more than that 138 number. So just important to consider for when you're going to school as well. Also, there's another available funding option of the Graduate Plus loans. These are a separate application from the FAFSA loans, and they are requiring a credit check, but they do have the added benefit of going up to the cost of attendance, and there is no total limit. You can borrow just to whatever that would cost for you. Good news, though, when it comes to the undergraduate loans, you may or may not have, but if you do have them, as long as you are enrolled at least half-time or part-time as a graduate student, those will remain in deferment and you do not have to make payments on those loans. And sort of looping back into the thing I said about the 6-month deferment, that is a one-time deferment for all of the loans. So for example, if you graduate undergrad in May and you take that 6-month deferment at that point, whenever you graduate graduate school, you would not then get again another 6 months. You would just start repayment sort of at that point. So just important to consider and how you space out that period there just for the future payment options there. But whether it's fellowships or loans, graduate school is definitely an option for you to be able to have to help advance you and your career. Now, 5, the final step, building a strong financial reputation. When it comes to this, we sort of like to think of a financial reputation as your credit score, which is sort of like a financial GPA. Like a GPA, the higher the better, and a credit score, sort of like a GPA, goes from 300 to 850, and it's just that number. And there are a lot of benefits to having a strong credit score. If you have the higher the credit score, it can make it a whole lot easier to buy or rent things, houses, cars, whatever it is. But ultimately, it makes it cheaper to borrow money, which may not sound like too big of a deal. But when it comes to something like borrowing money for a house or a car, it will literally make the difference of hundreds or tens of thousands of dollars that you can either save by having good credit or unfortunately be charged extra if you have poor credit. So it's very important to be able to help work to improve that score over time, as there are a lot of amazing ways to help save money through that. First, when it comes to a credit score, you have to know if you have one. So if you have a credit card in your name or you're on a parent's credit card, if you have student loans, if you have a car loan, or if you're on a mortgage or you have any type of debt at all, congratulations, you have a credit score and you're on this amazing path to be able to help fully improve it over time and save money on interest when you eventually borrow money. So that's good if you know you have one. If you don't know what the actual number is, you just know you have a score, I would strongly encourage you to check out your credit score either through something like your mobile banking apps or the website like Credit Karma, where you can check your score all completely for free. And when it comes to improving a credit score, as you can see here, there are a lot of factors that go into it, but I really just want to highlight the biggest two quickly. Or first, I should say, just quick review. Tells lenders about your credit worthiness, whether or not they should loan money to you, and how much you should be charged for that, whether that's a lot or a little in fees. You will require a social security number. Will it be your credit history? We'll cover that. And this is just the breakdown specifically for the FICO score, which is used by 90% of lenders, but it can be very slightly different based on where you pull it from. But overall, this is how the score breaks down for the vast majority of cases. By far, the biggest portion of this is payment history, which is 35%, which is, are you making your payments on time? I cannot stress how important it is that you try and make all of your minimum payments at least on time and in full. Missing a payment, even just once, can have a very negative impact on your credit score for up to 7 years from the time you miss that payment. So it's very important to be able to just make those payments, and that is very important. Second, amounts owed. This is the amount that you specifically to like credit cards or revolving debt that you have on that at any given time. And ideally, you should have no more than 30% of your available limit used. So for example, if you have a credit card with $1,000 limit, try to have no more than $300 on that card at any given time to sort of help show that you're remaining financially disciplined and restrained, and you're not spending potentially beyond your means and you may be unable to pay it back, but instead you're spending a small and reasonable amount. Other factors that are less important but still do play a factor, things like credit age, which is just how long you've had credit. Nothing you can really do about that. You just have to sort of be patient and wait. Credit type, which just impacts the different types of credit you have. Do you have student loans or a credit card or a car loan or a house loan? That is a factor. We wouldn't encourage you to go take out a bunch of loans to just improve this aspect of your credit, but it'll sort of just come with the age and stage of life that you're in, but not a huge deal, but it is a factor. And then fourth, finally, again, 10%, the amount of new credit that you're applying for. This just shows how many times you're applying for credit within a given period. Generally, it's seen as not a good thing if you apply for too much credit at once, as it may seem that you're risky and sort of needing money. So try not to apply for all the credit you want at once, but just space it out over months or years to sort of help, make that a little bit easier. Also, there are various behaviors that can hurt the credit score. Anything from late or missing payments, maxing out cards, applying for too many, obviously defaulting on loans, which means you're not paying on them for an extended period of time, where ultimately, at the worst case, bankruptcy would obviously hurt your credit. So try not to do any of these behaviors and instead just remain disciplined by making those payments on time and using ideally less than 30% of your available credit limit for things like credit cards, and just being patient over time that your credit score will increase. But that was all the 5 things. So first, Refresh your budget, super important. That's the financial foundation to your entire life. And as you see throughout the rest of the presentation, the budget was a consistent topic being looped through everything. So it's important to get that right. Second, plan to negotiate your salary. It's such a critical step in one's life. And there's very few times in your life with just one uncomfortable conversation, you can make thousands or tens of thousands of dollars more. And it's such a critical aspect to do and plan accordingly to do that well. Third, work on saving and investing for retirement and other major expenses, whether that's through something like an IRA, an individual retirement account, or through something like an employer-sponsored plan, such as a 401k. Again, very important. Start investing early and do it often. Fourth, work on the student loan repayments if that's something that applies to you, identifying like your monthly payments, your loan servicers, for those who want to go to grad school, additional funding sources like fellowships or assistantships to help cover that. And then finally, work to build a strong credit reputation by improving your credit score. And we just covered that, but yes. Sort of now, how can we help you? So at the Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center, regardless of where you are in your journey with Penn State, we are here to help you all completely at no additional cost. One big service I really want to hit home on is our one-on-one appointments. Unfortunately, I won't be able to do them anymore, but the service still has a lot of other great people that can give them to you. They are amazing ways to be able to help get one-on-one education and counseling with people that are professionally certified and trained with students' personal finances. An amazing way to help get some of those more, personal or in-depth questions answered in a safe and confidential way. Highly recommend. We offer those both online, um, online on Zoom and also in person at University Park. And you can book those via Starfish, same platform as our other advisors you may use through Penn State. We offer group presentations and webinars. So if you have a club that would like to invite us in, we'd love to be there. I recently just presented for Club Bowling and they were a real hoot. So that was fun. Again, webinars, we're super excited to see all of you here today. We have these, I think there's a break for the summer. I think Allie can get you the schedule, but we will have them resuming regularly in the fall. So look forward to that. Our self-study modules are a great way to learn some of our course contents in the asynchronous way on your own time for people with a busy schedule. Also, we have a financial wellness bookshelf. So if you have interest in any checking out financial books, renting them, checking those out, that is a great way to sort of help get access to, physical literature on personal finance near you. And we have those on every Penn State campus. So regardless of where you are throughout the Commonwealth, that's a resource available to you. And if you want to check out any of these resources or anything else, this QR code here will just take you to our website, financialliteracy.psu.edu, to check out anything else. But yeah, thank you all for coming today.